Yeah, we'll be recording the session, except for the Q&A at the end. And just one other thing, we're going to take a short break every 20 minutes or so. So for every 20 minutes, we'll take a 20-second break and encourage you to kind of stand up, move around, and just look at something that's about 20 meters away from you. So it's just a little bit of housekeeping. All right, now over to you, Chris, to lead us through the next section.
Thanks, Steve, and thank you to everyone for coming along today. I was just mentioning before that if you've traded your 1 hour of outdoor exercise for this afternoon's session, then we thank you very much. It's gorgeous out there, so yeah, hopefully we can give you some value back on this session. But we're here just to sort of really cover off on some detail around the recently announced grants program that's been put together by the City of Casey. This grants program is actually just one piece of an overall backing business campaign in direct response to the most obvious economic impact that we're having through COVID-19. So, as most of you would be aware, both the state and federal government have released a number of sort of support and stimulus packages, but in direct consultation back with our local business community, we've identified some gaps and areas and ineligibility with some of those existing programs. So the idea behind putting this one together was really to identify those grey spots and look for supporting our local businesses in a way that's going to really encourage and engage long-term business activity and growth. Now, as opposed to...
I need to listen to this from Mum, okay?
As opposed to... as opposed to the sort of the standard stimulus packages, which are designed around really this survival phase, you know, getting through the existing problems so that you've got a business at the end of it all. What we're really looking at here is activity that will support longer term objectives for economic creation. So we'll cover that in a little bit more detail as we go through the funding streams, but I think it's important to recognise that this is being part of a sort of a $500,000 local support package. Not everyone is going to be able to access these grants. So it is also important to remember that, falling back on a cliche a little bit, that we're all in this together, to recognise and remember that you're not alone. So the economic development team that's here, and you'll get the contact details for later on, is here to support businesses across many different areas. And this is only just one particular area that we're focused on today. It forms part of some of the other programs that we run. One of the well-received programs that we've run that also ties into this is our local mentoring piece. So back in March, when this all started to kick off with the restrictions, we activated our mentor program to ensure that there was specialist advice and expertise behind some of the key areas in small business. And we've actually extended that program in as part of our grants program as well. So anyone who is actually successful in getting the grant will also be allocated a mentor that will work with them to ensure that they're really setting themselves up for the best amount of success moving forward. So we'll go into a little bit more detail on that as we cover off on the funding streams, but maybe now, just for the general overview, I might pass it over to Steve.
Right. Just what I'd like to highlight the purpose of this session, and really what we wanted to do is make sure that that your business is eligible for the funding program. We also want to help you decide which funding stream you should apply for. Chris is going to unpack the 5 different streams of grants that are available. We want to really help you determine or discern which would be the best stream for you to apply in. Also, the purpose of the session is to help you understand the grant application structure as well. I think many folks feel quite daunted by submitting a grant application, and we want to remove some of that anxiety by explaining the structure. And then we're also going to go through the application with you and also help you understand how you could perhaps respond to the questions appropriately. And then we're also going to cover off on the acquittal requirements. And that word acquittal just means really the reporting information that you are required to provide at the end of the grant if you're successful. So we're going to go just look at the issue of eligibility, because really what we don't want to do is having you waste time submitting a grant for which you're not actually eligible. And so before you commence the grant application process, we just need to make sure that to be an eligible business and to qualify to submit an application, you must have an ABN. You must also hold public liability insurance to the value of $5 million minimum. Your business must be located within the city of Casey. And you must also prove that your business has been impacted by the mandatory closures of premises or the mandatory changes to your operations, and that you can demonstrate at least a 30% reduction in your income as a result of COVID. And just a couple of more points as well. Your business must employ fewer than 10 full-time employees at the time of your application. Now, there are some circumstances in which there's some wiggle room, but you'll need to consult with economic development to see whether you are able to circumvent that particular eligibility criteria point. And then the other thing that would make your business ineligible is if you have already received funding through other state or federal government programs, with the exception of JobKeeper. And so there was the Victorian government grant of $10,000. If you've been a recipient of that particular grant, unfortunately, you will not be able to apply for this particular grant program. So if you've got any questions on eligibility, write your question in the chat box, and we'll endeavour to respond to that at the end of this session. Okay, we're just going to look now at what projects and activities are ineligible or will not be funded. And so we're just going to go through these points. Benuthi, could I get you to mute, please? Thank you, that's great. All right, so these are the following projects and activities that will not be funded under this grant program. Projects that are more suitable for funding by another level of government or agency. And we will raise the issue of the recent announcement about some grants for sole traders, and City of Casey are looking at how that might impinge upon this grant program. So Chris and Tamara will be able to speak to that a little later on. Projects that were completed before the 1st of September this year are ineligible. Projects that are delivered or held outside of the City of Casey don't qualify, as are projects also delivered by community groups, not-for-profit organisations, schools, universities or TAFE. So you must be a business. If your business is in the process of going into administration, we cannot accept your applications. And projects that do not have the approved permits or necessary licenses also do not qualify. There's just a few more here. The program doesn't fund ongoing staff salaries or operating costs such as rent, utilities or web hosting. So they would be classed as sort of administrative costs. Projects that do not adhere to COVID-19 restrictions imposed by the state or federal government. The activities such as purchasing protective equipment such as gloves, hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies are ineligible. Purchase of products and goods for sale, and projects that are considered business as usual for the business prior to COVID, and also projects that cannot demonstrate a contribution to the long-term viability of the business. Now, again, if you require clarity on any of those ineligible projects or activities, write your question in the chat box, and Chris and Tamara will respond to that at the end. So I'm going to handball now over to Chris, and he's going to explain the 5 different streams of funding that are available. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Steve. Essentially the way that this has been formed and put together really has been a big part of us working and listening directly back with our local business community. We've established here 5 funding streams that can be looked at. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we also recognise that you're in the best position to know and understand your business. So these streams are really there in place to give you the guidelines in regards to how much can be applied for and what particular areas of focus we're looking at within that, that side of sort of longer term activity. So these funding streams really are to be looked at as activity that will allow you to be able to successfully grow as a business and sort of move beyond into those next stages. So the funding streams that we have are listed here, and I'll just sort of go through them a little bit in sort of smaller detail, but the first funding stream is digital infrastructure. So I don't think I really need to sort of highlight the importance here on having a digital presence, but certainly it's an area that if you haven't explored that prior to COVID, it's an area that you would want to be considering now as we move forward. I was on a webinar the other evening with Telstra, and they were talking about a night a couple of weeks ago where on the same night, Fortnite, Call of Duty and Netflix all updated their content and the entire country almost crashed. And now we're looking on the back end of that, you know, a quarter of retail sales are going online. This acceleration and adoption around digital and online presence has just been really brought to the forefront with COVID, and we expect that it is one of those areas that will continue even after. So understanding and recognising that there's many elements of your business that you can't replace with digital needs to be recognised that it is important to actually have that digital presence. So this kind of activity that we've got here, as we've got listed, is kind of website development, app development, e-commerce platforms, food platforms. It's effectively any area that's going to be the front-facing piece for your clients and your customers to go through. Say in the case of food, you might be able to look at say Uber Eats and you know, sort of putting together the program pieces there. In the case of a retailer, it might be leveraging that for third-party systems like Shopify, etc. So what we're looking at is those initial setup costs to be able to get you online and to be able to get that up and running so you've got some digital infrastructure in place. Important to remember that with all of these streams that you may only apply for a single stream per business. So you can only be successful in actually receiving a grant for one of these streams. So take careful consideration in weighing up the 5 different streams as to which one will have the most significant impact on your business. Stephen, I might get you to jump to...
Right, number 2.
Yeah. The stream 2 is the business continuity planning and workforce capability. We're finding that there's really two or three different ways of sort of thinking of this whole process as a business, and I think those that we're finding are reacting to it the best is to look at this period we're going through right now as I guess is the obligatory pause that we need to do for the sake of the health of the nation and obviously the world. But the reality is that now is not really a time where you're talking about accelerating your business and ramping up. In fact, part of this is really recognition that a lot of businesses have seen the reversal of that and a big downturn. So when we talk about business continuity planning and workforce capability, many are using that time to actually upskill staff and look at opportunities really to be able to start to explore both capacity and capability within your team. So these are grants that are available for up to $4,000 for businesses to really look at how they might be able to bring in things like online webinars, training courses, maybe accredited training or in-house training of staff, and designed really to build out that capability of your workforce so that again you're in a stronger position over the long term as we move out of this. So Stream 2 is really focused on that area of upskill, capacity and capability. Stream 3 is physical infrastructure and equipment. So again, anyone who's in the hospitality area, or in fact anyone who's in the that public space with the premises, would understand that there's going to be obligations moving forward as we get into this new COVID normal. And the most immediate reaction to that has been those setups, those short-term setups in regards to social distancing, and looking at the environment that you're in, and ensuring that it's safe for customers to come back to and to trading. This isn't necessarily for that initial response. This is really us looking at it and considering that in some cases there's going to need to be maybe a redesign of an area in light of some of the new changes and impact moving forward. It's also for any infrastructure or equipment that's going to be able to assist with that level of growth as a business. So it could be shop fittings, it could be hardware. All you really need to do is demonstrate that the structures are going to support the business for your long-term economic recovery. So this funding stream will allow grants between 500 and 2,000, and again designed for those probably more with some sort of physical type structure as opposed to those who might have other businesses in mind. Stream 4. And I will point out, if you've got any questions on any of these as we go through, as Steve suggested, just type it into the chat. We will get to Q&A at the end of this, where we get through those questions. So any direct questions, feel free to pop it straight into the chat. Funding stream 4 is promotion, and this is a big one. We consistently get that feedback from our business community that promotion is really what's going to help them most in the next stages. I think we all know that whilst right now it's very difficult for us to do business, and certainly you wouldn't be necessarily going out there right now and spending a lot of money on promotion, positioning your business as we get ready for everyone starting to move back into that COVID normal is going to be so important. You need to get that communication across in regards to being open, what services you're providing. And I think recognizing and understanding that what this has really done is this universal lens is really localized economy and really brought communities together. So we anticipate, and we're already seeing, that close-knit sort of community support. So in those areas and with that focus, it's really important to actually let people know you're around and what you do and how you do it. So this one really around promotion is the basics around sort of promotional activity. Might be advertising costs, digital marketing, even printing content, or development and brand awareness. But anything that's going to essentially regarding your business, this is available for grants between $500 and $2,000. And then the final stream 5, is the one that I guess everyone, it's a little bit like the elephant in the room, and I noticed they even used that term on Q&A last night when they were about it. But the mental health impact of what this is all happening, I think is something that we're all acutely aware of. The recognition here with the funding stream 5 is that businesses, and certainly those businesses with employees, really have that level of obligation and to work with their staff in a way that actually supports health and well-being through this sort of current crisis. What we're really looking at here, though, again, with the same sort of lens of long-term success and long-term capability, as opposed to that part that was looking at business continuity and planning. This is really focused on mental health outside. So this might be professional support, again, online webinars and workshops, but those specifically focused on mental health and well-being. So we do need to make the point, because we have been asked the question, that this doesn't extend into day spa retreats or gym memberships. And I can certainly appreciate the argument that assists with mental health and well-being, but this is really designed around that sort of professional, specialised support around those areas. So, and you will know the businesses that see this stream and really respect and understand where they will be able to fit that in the business and where it sits in the context of their future success will really be able to take advantage of this one with grants of up to $2,000. So the funding streams really are there in those key categories that we believe are going to help with that local support to be able to drive us forward for long-term success. But within those, there is a lot of, I guess, flexibility in regards to the specific needs of your business. And there is the use of the word there, specific, as you'll sort of cover with Stephen as we move forward. Really what you need to do within these grants is really get specific around how these are actually helping with that long-term success of your business in order to be successful for your grant application. So I might actually get Steve to jump into a bit of detail and some finer points on what to do when running through that application.
Great, thanks, Chris, and great to see so many questions coming forward. So just reiterate what Chris has shared there, that this grants program has really been designed to support the long-term sustainability of your business, not to keep you just in survival mode. And so it really is trying to encourage you to think proactively about the kinds of projects that are going to position you really, really well for the future. Just before we go to the next point, just want to highlight that applications for the same project cannot be made to multiple streams of funding. So you've got to select a stream and submit your application in that one stream. And while you can submit multiple applications, only one application per business will actually be supported. So I guess most of us would have applied for a job. We've written a job application and submitted our CV, and we do that because what we're trying to do is applying for a job is a competitive process. There are going to be other people vying for the position that's being advertised. And if you could kind of think of a grant application is pretty much the same as applying for a job. And just like your job application is the tool that you use to sell yourself to a prospective employer, the grant application is the tool that you are using to sell your business and your project to a funding body, which in this case is the City of Casey. And so the chief purpose of a grant application is persuasion. The grant application is your persuasion document. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to convince the person or the people who are going to process your application that your business and your project are going to be would be a suitable recipient of their support. So what the City of Casey wants to do, the City of Casey is looking for businesses that they can partner with and that they can distribute their funds to. And so what your job is to do through the written grant application process is to provide the information that is being asked and provide the documentation that's being asked so that you position yourself, that your application stands out from other applications and that you are in a really, really strong position to receive the funding that you've asked for. So that's the purpose of the grant application. I'm just going to run through with you a couple of really important tips that are associated with the grant writing application process. Can I encourage you to read the guidelines, and then after you've read the guidelines, read the guidelines again, and then read the guidelines a third time. We want to make sure that we don't, as we said earlier, we don't want you to waste your time applying for a grant that you don't qualify for. And we want to make sure that you understand the nature of the grant program. So, read through the guidelines really carefully and closely. Now, when you come to write a response in your grant application, I can't stress this enough, but you need to answer the question. I've got a friend who is a university lecturer, and she was telling me that when students submit their exam papers, she says she gets wonderful responses often, but she has to fail the student because they actually don't respond to the question. They're not actually answering the question. And so what I suggest that you do is print a hard copy of the application off, get your highlighter pen and highlight the key words in the question. And then when you come to respond to the question, reflect the words that were in the question back in your answer. And by responding to the question, by providing all of the relevant information, the more chance you have of receiving a timely and successful outcome. Another really important grant writing tip is that when you write your application, write in what's called the active voice and the first person. So you say, we will. So what you want to do is write as though this is a project that is going to go ahead. So you're being really, really positive. The other thing is if the application allows you to, and because this is an online application, there may be some limitations, but if you are able to, use subheadings and dot points when you actually write your application. And can I encourage you, before you send in your application, before you submit it, proofread it, or better still, get somebody who hasn't been working on the application to proofread it for you. I know for myself, I can spend days or weeks working on a grant application, and I've spent so long with it, I actually miss obvious grammar mistakes. And I know we've got spell check and Grammarly and other tools available to us, but it's very easy if you've spent a lot of time with the document to miss some obvious issues. Now, it's obviously not an English test, but it's just what you're trying to do is make the job of the person who reads your application. You're just trying to make their job just that little bit easier. Another really, really important point in terms of writing a grant application and submitting an application is make sure that you attach all the necessary documentation. So in this particular grant program, the City of Casey have asked for a business plan. If you have one, you must provide a copy of your certificate of currency. Sorry, can I just ask you to turn your thing to mute, please, if you could. Also, just in terms of a business activity statement, and also you must provide quotes in your documentation as well. The reason for that is we don't want the council officers having to call you and chase up those documents. And because it is a competitive process, the easier that you make it for the people who are processing your application, it just positions you in a better place in terms of being successful. And then just one other really important thing is submit your application early. Although the deadline date for this program has been set at the 30th of November, it's also a first in, best dressed assessment process. And so once all of the funds have been dispersed, the program will then come to an end. So there's a pool of $200,000 that's been made available. And once that $200,000 has been allocated, then the program is closed. So there's no guarantee that if you submit an application on the 30th of November, that there will actually be any funds available for you to receive. Now, if you've got any questions around the actual writing of your grant application, you might want to write something in the chat box, or I'm going to stay around after the session today for a while, and happy to respond to any questions there. Now, we are going to look at the actual grant application in a moment, but before we do, I'm just going to explain to you the actual structure of this particular application. As I said at the very beginning, many people feel quite overwhelmed by the thought of writing a grant, and to help make the task feel less ominous, what it helps is if you break down the application into bite-sized pieces. And if you approach it section by section rather than seeing it as one big application. And so this particular grant program, the Backing Business in Casey grant, has 6 sections. And I would say that 3 of those sections are really, really easy. You won't have any problems responding to those sections. And that is the pre-application eligibility checklist. You simply go through and tick a yes or no box. The business details section of the application, it's providing information about your ABN number, also your certificate of currency, those types of information, your address, your contact details, all of that information. So that's not really a problem. And then the 6th element is the declaration, which again is just a very small section that you're stating that the information that you're providing is actually correct. Now, what we're going to do now is we are going to open up the actual grant application, and we're going to go through it section by section and just explain it to you, and hopefully answer some questions for you. Right, so share screen. Let me just go to this document here. Can you see that, or it's not there? Let me, right, there we go. We can all see that now?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right, so this is the actual grant application. Sorry, can I just ask everybody please to switch their can I ask you all to go to mute, please? It's just, there's children in the background, just makes it a little difficult for people to concentrate. Thank you, appreciate that. Okay, right. So this is the actual grant application, and we're just going to go through it step by step and look at the actual sections one by one. So this is the pre-application eligibility checklist. This is the first part of the application, and it's very, very simple. Are you a business? Yes or no. If you're a community group or a political group or a church, not-for-profit organisation, then you don't qualify. You've got to confirm that you are based in the city of Casey, that you actually have 10 full-time equivalent employees. We did mention earlier that there are some exceptions to that rule, and you can contact the economic development team if you would like some more information on that, if you do have more than 10 employees. Your ABN, your public liability insurance, a confirmation that your business has been impacted by COVID, and a confirmation that your project will be undertaken after the 1st of September. From there, we move into the business details section of the application, which is again very, very simple. Your organisation name, your ABN number. This little box here is from the Australian Business Register, and that automatically populates itself once the information is inputted. Your primary business address, the business owner's name, the business owner's email address, and a postal address, obviously if it's different from the one above. Phone numbers, your website URL, and if you've got a social media page, you also share your URL there as well. And here is just the applicant contact details, the contact person, the position in the organisation, phone numbers. We all know that information. So this section of the application is self-explanatory, and you shouldn't really have any problems filling that in. So you can relax. This is the easy part. What area of business do you operate in? Brief description of your business, how long your business has been operating. If you do have a business plan, it would be very helpful to include that. That would really strengthen your application. I know that economic development look really favourably upon businesses that are preparing for the future, and any supporting documentation along with your business plan needs to be attached there. Question around a business mentor, and another question around your public liability insurance. So that's the second section of the application. So far, I would suspect that most of us would have very little problem in completing that section of the application. Now we come to a statement around the impact of COVID-19, which is you don't traditionally find in a grant application, but given the nature of this program, this is a requirement. And so you need to confirm that your business has been impacted by COVID-19. Then you need to explain why your business has been unsuccessful or ineligible for other sources of grant funding. Now, it might be because you're a sole trader. Whatever the reason is, just give an explanation as to why you've been unable to secure any other funding or any other support other than JobKeeper. And then what you need to do then is upload supporting documentation. So I think there's a mention there of your business statement. Then there's a little tick box there. Which of the following has your business experienced as a result of COVID-19? And again, you just tick whichever one of those boxes apply. And there we go. Here is you're providing evidence or an explanation of why you've been unable to receive other support from other sources. That's where your business activity statement goes there. All right. And an explanation of what sort of disruption COVID has caused to your business. So that might be you may have to have laid off staff, or you're unable to operate because of the lockdown. So you just explain there what impact COVID has had on your business. That's not too difficult, but again, you might just have some questions on some responses that need to be provided there. So pop them in the chat box on the screen there. Right, this is where we come to where I think most people probably struggle when it comes to submitting the grant application, and this is around your project details. And we'll go through this and hopefully resolve some of the questions that you might have. So with your project, the first thing that you need to do is determine which stream you are going to apply under. For what project does your stream, which stream does your project sit under? And so you first of all have got to determine that. Remember, you can't submit an application under 2 streams. You've got to select one particular stream. So once you've determined what stream you sit under, just tick the appropriate box there. And then you are going to state how much funding that you are requesting, which requires that you've done some scoping, that you've looked for or secured some quotes. And so you need to fill in that box there, which is also repeated later on in the budget section of the application. The title of your project or activity, you know, if it's a social media campaign, you can just call it the name of your business and call it social media campaign. If it's increasing the resilience, your resilience, call it the name of your, for example, this is just a suggestion, the name of your business plus building capacity or building resilience could be the title of your project. This next section is actually the heart of the grant application, this particular thing called the project description. So it says, please provide a detailed description of your proposed project or activity and how you intend to deliver it, including timelines. Now, earlier on, what I suggested that you might want to do is print out a hard copy of your application. And then what I recommend that you do in responding to this question is you highlight with a highlighter pen or underline the key words in this question. So provide a detailed description. So the key word there is you've got to describe your project or activity. And the other key word there is deliver, and the other key word is timelines. So when you respond to this question, you are going to provide a clear and detailed response, which includes how you propose to deliver your project and when that project will commence, and when your project will come to an end. Now, this is actually the heart of the grant application, and this is where you need to make sure that you really respond correctly to this particular question. Everything hinges on the stream that you select and ensuring that your project the project that you intend doing marries with the actual stream that you've selected, and that you outline thoroughly what it is that you're going to do, how it's going to be delivered, and when it's going to be delivered. I guess when we come to the Q&A at the end, there'll be some questions around this, and we can unpack it a little further. Okay, so there's the anticipated project start date and the anticipated end date of the project, and then it's looking at this particular question again, along with the project description, is really important. What specific outcomes do you expect as a result of your proposed project or activity? So if I can explain this to you, an outcome might be if you're a food business, you're involved in, you might be a cafe, it might be that you want to update and deliver a new menu. That might be one of the outcomes. Or you might want to increase your patronage at your business. Another outcome might be that you want to enlarge the audience that you're endeavoring to reach. Another outcome might be you want to increase and improve the resilience of yourself or any staff that you might employ. Increasing awareness of your business would be an outcome, for example, if you were applying for a grant that sits under the promotion stream. obviously, one of the outcomes would be an increase in revenue. Another outcome would also be that your business is sustainable. If another outcome might be improving the confidence and the capabilities of yourself or your team, and really what your outcomes, your project description and your outcomes are trying to demonstrate is how your grant is going to contribute towards your business's sustainability going forward into the future. Then again, if you've got some questions on outcomes, we can respond to that at the end in the Q&A. Then we've got another question about COVID-19, which is how is this particular project that you're wanting to deliver, how is it COVID specific, and how is it new or different from the usual activity of your business? So that's around how you might have had to change or modify your business as a result of COVID in the delivery of this project. And then what lasting benefit or impact will the project or activity have for your business and or the broader local community? Well, in some respects, you can respond to that by re-emphasizing the outcomes, which are around sustainability and improving confidence or capacity, or in enlarging people's awareness of your business. And then again, attached to the idea of ensuring that the project is contributing to the long-term sustainability of your business and not just its survival. We'd like you to respond by describing where you see your business in 6 to 12 months and how your project is going to contribute towards that vision. Now, none of us have a crystal ball, so we don't know for sure. So this is really an aspirational statement. Okay. And in line with your project, you do need to provide at least one quotation from other businesses for any services that you might, or equipment that you might need to purchase to deliver your program. And there's a little statement about how you intend to support local businesses. And there you need to attach a quote or other evidence to support the fact that you are, in fact, eliciting the support of other businesses in Casey. And what skills, resources, and experiences does your business have to support the successful delivery of this type of project? So that's really you thinking about your strengths. What strengths do you and your business bring to the table? And that covers the project description section of the application. Again, any questions related to this section, I encourage you to put them in the chat box, and we'll deal with that at the end. Then the second to last area of the application is the project budget. And here what you're doing is just ascertaining the amount of money that you're requesting from Casey. Let's say that's $4,000, and your expenditure has to match or marry up with the amount of money that you're requesting. When there's this other table here. So again, total income amount, total expenditure amount, and those things should match or marry. Now, one thing in regards to the budget that is really important, and because there is only a limited amount of money to disperse, often what happens with grant programs, you might ask for 4,000, but the reality is you might only receive half of that or 3/4 of that. So this question is asking you to think through what the minimum amount of money is that you require to make sure this project that you have in mind can be delivered. So while you might request 4,000, you need to say, well, look, I could deliver this project for 3,000 or 3,500. And then you describe what changes you would make to the project if you were only to receive a partial amount of funding. So again, this is a limited pool of money, and council obviously want to support as many businesses as they can, and so it may be that you may not get the amount of money that you request. So they're asking you to think creatively about how you can deliver this project. Then finally, very easy, you just have to certify that the information that you've provided in this application is true, and that is the application completed. So I'm going to stop share that, and we're now going to look at resharing, going back to our PowerPoint. If you give me a second, and I'll find that.
I just wonder if maybe we just take a quick break.
Great idea. Sorry, we've missed our 2020, haven't we? A number of times. Apologies about that. Yeah, how about we take a 3-minute break or so? So we'll come back at 4 o'clock. It's 3:57 according to my clock, my time frame. So 3 minutes. How does that sound, everybody?
Yep, sounds good.
Good. Okay, we all ready to go? You're able to give me a thumbs up. that would be helpful. Beautiful. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Aileen. All right. Well, let's reconvene, and we'll now just go through the remainder part of the presentation before we respond to the questions. I think it's really important to explain, while for some of you this application process might appear to be onerous, it's important to understand that the City of Casey have to fulfill statutory requirements or obligations because they must substantiate that they're accountable with public funds, and has to follow due diligence and be proven to be fair and transparent in the process. So if this process does seem a little onerous to you, it's only because of the requirements that council have to respond to in terms of being fair and transparent in the process. Okay, now when it comes to the acquittal, this is the reporting procedure. I just you need to understand that a funding agreement is actually a legally binding document, and that you are obligated to carry out the project that you detailed in your project description within the time frame and for the costs that you outlined in your grant application. So this is, if you're successful, you'll sign a funding agreement, which is a legally binding document. Let's hope that every one of us is successful. Once you have completed your project, what you will need to do is you need to complete what's called an acquittal form within 60 days of you completing the project, or by the 30th of June, whichever is earlier. And it's absolutely imperative that you retain all of the invoices and receipts that are associated with your project, and also proof that your grant actually helped support your business in response to the impact of COVID. So that's just, that is part of a requirement of every grant program, that you need to acquit or report on that. Okay, so just to let you know that if you're needing to strengthen your capacity when it comes to writing grants, the City of Casey does run grant writing workshops throughout the year. They provide really helpful information in regards to providing resources and tools, and also information on how to develop a project, and also where to get funding. So I encourage you, if you haven't done a grant writing workshop, it's something that you might like to consider going forward. All right, well, we can stop the PowerPoint now and come back